Hello everyone, good evening, and today we're going to be reviewing AP Biology, Ecosystem, and Ecology study questions. Our first one here are, how are ecosystems different from populations? So ecosystems are going to be all the communities and the abiotic factors, whereas populations are only the species, all the species, members of a species living in an area at the same time, place, right? Does climate play a role in establishing ecosystems? Include how the physical position of Earth in relation to the Sun is an important factor. So you know that at the equator, the Sun is the strongest, which means there's more energy that drives the evaporation of water. When there is more water present, this is where there's more precipitation. More rain means more plants. Then more plants usually means more diversity in this area. Also, the tilt of the Earth is also contributing to the seasonal changes. Let's just go through here and not type everything up. It's going to take longer. So there's also the seasonal changes in relation to where the sun is beating down on the earth. There's different zones of climate which are created by uneven heating. There's uneven heating, there's uneven evaporation, precipitation. This creates these bands of particular climate change. What latitudes does rainfall occur? Why do the wet and dry patterns exist? The latitudes the rainfall occur are either at the equator and the regions near the top of globe, but basically in the middle of those two hemispheres, the north and south hemisphere. Why do the wet and dry patterns exist? Again, this is the uneven heating. This is the heating and cooling of the air. It's contributing to these weather patterns. The leeward and windward sides of the mountains and how they get different precipitation. Well, in the windward side of the mountain, you have the moist air going up, and then it cools and it goes back down again. The leeward side, it's dry air, and this dry air is going down. We could see that there's an exchange of the moist air, and then it cools again as it goes down on the windward side. That can contribute to the different weather. And the sea breezes also can be found near mountains, which the warm air goes up and the cool air again recycles. It goes from the ocean, it goes down, and then it cools again, replaces this warm air. Determining biome, I think, would be the next one. Let's see. Major trends for biomes in the lecture. Well, the tropical rainforest, again, it's hot, humid, heavy rain. There's poor soil and it's shaded. There's the largest diversity in the tropical rainforest. You have the tropical deciduous forest, it's a lower rainfall. There's a dry season in here, that's the main thing. Temperate deciduous forest, that's like a forest here in America. There's many adaptations done by the organisms in this biome. Sometimes it get below freezing and it's less diverse. A taiga is a cold region with lower diversity. There's evergreens, there's poor soil, and there's snow. Unlike a tundra, there is no permafrost in a taiga. So a tundra has permafrost, but a taiga doesn't. Tropical grassland, this is with some rain. There's an extended dry season. This is where your large mammals will be found. Temperate grasslands have a hot summer and a cold winter. They have less rain than a forest, but they still have more rain than a desert. There's a lot of burrowing animals in the temperate grassland. A hot desert, it gets cold at night, even though it's called a hot desert. There's low moisture, there's snow clouds. A lot of reptiles in a hot desert. In a cold desert, again, it's the interior of those continents. Think like Mongolia. It has a warmer summer though. Again, tundra is the extremes of the pole regions, and there's a little diversity, and there's permafrost in the tundra. The mountains have unpredictable zones, and there's also the aquatic biomes as well, freshwater, brackish, and different zones. The photic zone in the ocean, that's where you're going to find the light. And there's plants in the photic zone. And then there's also coral reefs, and intertidal zone, which is where the land and the sea meet. There's also lakes with the seasonal changes. I think this one right here was the major limiting factor for aquatic biomes. I think you could say light on that one, because the plants could only be in the photic zone. Let's see. Okay, so why is it necessary for lakes to undergo seasonal changes? Well, in the seasonal changes, we see that the surface water of the lake is oxygen rich but poor nutrients, and it will be traded with the deep water, which has better nutrients and it's oxygen poor. So the cycle exchanges this water. Primary production determined diversity in the ecosystem. Primary production, that's the total amount of free energy stored in the organic compounds by producers. So this would determine the structure and the complexity of the ecosystem, because if there's more of this energy, then there could be more consumers, so forth. This is gross primary production and net primary production. The gross is basically the total photosynthetic, and this is the amount of fixed carbon. The net primary production is the total photosynthetic production for consumers, and the net actually takes into account the energy that the plant uses for function. The limiting factors for terrestrial biomes, these would be water temperature, nutrients, and in aquatic biomes it would be light and nutrients. What is the role of a dendrivore? A dendrivore is, again, they recycle and break down all the dead material, and they play the role of returning these nutrients back into the ecosystem. Describe how energy moves through the trophic levels. All right. So at the first level, we have the primary producer. They have the most energy other than the sun. And then as we go up the levels, the second trophic level would be the primary consumer, would eat that plant or whatever that autotroph is. Would see less energy there because, again, the producer would use some of that energy for function. And then the third trophic level would be the second consumer who eats the primary consumer, and again, less energy because that primary consumer uses some of that for function. Three relationship pyramids. So we have the number of the species in the ecosystem, greatest to least number. Protists are like some of them are basically, just have to think of them as the junk drawer of organisms. Daphnia, which is like a microscopic creature. Then we have beetles, and then we have fish. Fish are the least, while we have a lot of protists in this ecosystem. A biomass is how much mass basically is that organism taking up compared to everything else. So we see the oak tree is much less than all the parasites and predators. And all the lions versus all the plants, when you're comparing them, there's going to be more plants than lions. And the next thing is energy. Again, we went over how the energy goes. It goes down from each level of the trophic thing in a food chain or food web, because each of those organisms will use some of that energy for function. There's also biomagnification, where the higher levels on the food chain are at risk because of the chemical accumulation. Specifically, I was talking about DDT, which has a low solubility and doesn't break down, it accumulates in biotissue. So as it goes down this chain from the mud to the bugs to the fish to the gulls, it's increasing. Major processes that are involved in carbon cycle. We have photosynthesis, we have respiration, we also have the human action of combustion. It changes seasonally because in the spring, that's when all the new plants come out, so they're photosynthesizing like crazy. There's going to be more oxygen, there's going to be more carbon intake, carbon dioxide, that is. Steps of the nitrogen cycle are, we have different types of bacteria working. So we have the fixation bacteria. It'll turn the nitrogen gas in the atmosphere to ammonia or ammonium. Then we also have a few stages of nitrification, where the ammonia will become nitrates. We also have assimilation, where the plants will uptake the N compounds. We also have ammonification, which the fungi and bacteria get the N compounds and turn it into ammonia. Then we also have denitrification, where because the nitrogen is used in protein and DNA, bacteria will make nitrogen gas. How can humans impact the water cycle? With deforestation around the equator, the plants can't put water into the atmosphere if we're all cutting them down. Therefore, there would be less rain, there'd be less plants in that area. Other than that phosphorus one, I think that's it.